And good evening. Today is April the 1st. Right now it's 7:32, and I'm calling to order this evening's meeting of the Guilford Planning and Zoning Commission. For the benefit of those who have not participated in the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting, our procedures are as follows. The Secretary will read the legal notice of the meeting as published in local newspapers. The applicant will be invited to come forward and present the case, explaining to the Commission and others present what is being requested of this property. Comments of town agencies will be read for each application if there are any. First, there'll be clarifying questions from the commissioners, and then there'll be an opportunity for clarifying questions from the audience. Next, we'll ask those who want to support the application to come forward, and then we'll ask those who are opposing the application to come forward. As this is a public meeting and must be recorded, it will be necessary for speakers to identify themselves by stating their name and address before addressing the commission. The applicant will then be free to leave for the balance of remain for the balance of the public hearing and the regular meeting, during which the commission will try to reach a decision on each application. Each applicant will be notified in writing as to the decision of the commission, has the right to appeal to Superior Court if desired. Decisions of this meeting are available the day after the meeting by calling the Planning and Zoning Office at 203-453-8039 after 9 a.m. Seated tonight are the following members of the Guilford Planning and Zoning Commission. I'm going to introduce everybody, and then we're going to seat the members. Sorry, Tom. We have Walter Corbier, Rich Meyer. We have Tom Cost. We have a new victim who is just stepping up to the plate, Richard Hudson. Welcome, and enjoy it. It's a lot of fun. What's that?
Is it?
It is a lot of fun. We have Richard Wallace, Josh Hirschman, George Underhill, Ray Bauer, Phil Johnson, Frank DeAndre. Got a whole team here now. George Crowell is here as staff, and we have another new victim. Lisa Brewer is joining us as the recording secretary. Welcome to the club, Lisa. You'll enjoy it. Mr. Secretary, please read the notice.
Legal notice, Guilford Planning and Zoning Commission. Notice is hereby given that the Guilford Planning and Zoning Commission will hold a public hearing on April 1, 2015 at 7:30 p.m. at the Nathaniel B. Green Community Center, Monunketuck Room, 2nd floor, 32 Church Street, Guilford, Connecticut, for the following purposes. Number 1, William and Jennifer Yaxall. 50 Cooks Lane, map 122, lot 1702, zone R8, special permit, music instruction classes, Article 10, receive and set public hearing date for April 1, 2015. Number 2, Russo Real Estate, 421 Boston Street, 421 Boston Street, map 48, lot 54, zone I2, modification to special permit granted 11/19/14 for dwelling units in industrial zone, section 273-49A, to reduce number of apartments from 4 to 2 apartments. Receive and set public hearing date 3/18/2015. Copies of these applications are available for inspection at the Office of the Planning and Zoning Commission, Town Hall South, 50 Boston Street, Guilford, Connecticut. At this hearing, persons may attend and be heard, and written communications will be received. Dated at Guilford, Connecticut, this 11th day of March, 2015. Richard Meyer, Chairman.
Thank you, Walter. I appreciate that. All right, can I get a motion to open up public hearing on Yaxall?
So moved. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Who is presenting? That would be you.
Jennifer Yaxall, 50 Cooks Lane. I'm here, as you know, on the special permit application so that I can teach small music classes at our home at 50 Cooks Lane in the in-law apartment. I'd first like to give you my certified mail receipts, who I mentioned to. The return receipts as well. And the sign was posted on March 15th. As I mentioned, I would be teaching the small classes in an in-law apartment that we have at our home. And I believe that, as I described in my statement of use, that this would be fully compliant with the requirements for a special permit. And specifically, because the classes will be held in our house, it's not going to change the nature or character of the residential use of our house, which in turn is not going to, will be in harmony with the character of the neighborhood and the town. There should be adequate access for fire protection. The in-law suite is right next to our driveway, so there should be no problem there. The streets are adequate to carry the traffic. They're just small classes that I'm proposing, so there would not be a lot of traffic expected in connection with the use. The lot is of sufficient size. Again, we're not building any new structures. And there also is sufficient parking on site. I don't know if you wanted to see, I can show you. We've got actually a fair amount of parking if you want to.
Maybe you could just show us real quick.
Survey that we had prepared. Is this a good place to go?
Perfect.
So we have a barn here, and there's actually a parking space here that goes up to the barn, There's parking here, there's parking here, and we also sometimes park a car here. So there's,
Beautiful. Can I show the location?
absolutely.
Take a look.
I think everybody has actually a copy of that. It's reduced, hard to see in the reduced.
Yeah, it's nice to see the big one. So what else?
And no effect on historic properties or districts, as there are none.
Where is Cook's Lane?
It's just off of Great Hill Road. You go up the top of the hill at Great Hill Road,
Yep.
then it curves 90 degrees to the right,
Yep.
then it curves 90 degrees to the left. If you don't curve 90 to the left and you just keep on going, that's Cook's Lane. It's right by Rossiter's Fields.
Yep. Good.
So
Very cool.
That's about all I have to present.
Okay, so that's real good. Do we have questions? Lots of questions?
Quick one, are these group classes or individual lessons? or-
Small classes, small group classes.
Being like 3 to 5,
I
12 or
think
less.
Oh, yeah, yeah, no, like 8 would be a lot. I'm thinking 6, and for younger kids, I'm thinking 4. For older kids and grown-ups, I'm thinking 6.
This is the RHL. Where's the nearest neighbor here?
The nearest neighbor? They
Yeah,
are,
It's quite spread apart, right?
let's see,
Just to kind of get an idea.
it is pretty spread apart. There's neighbors here.
Okay.
And then there's neighbors here, but they're like, Great Hill Road goes here, so their house is up, tucked in closer to Great Hill
And
Road.
they haven't come to talk to you or
No.
anything when you have given them notice?
Oh, yes,
Okay.
yep, they've got the letters and nobody's said anything. I know the people next door don't mind because their girls were interested in doing it.
Okay, fair enough.
Is this new to your residents? Have you done this before?
No, I mean, I've taught
You've taught, but
music
not in here.
lessons, but not here and.
Okay. What hours are you going to be teaching on?
What hours? No later than 7 PM and no earlier than 9.
Weekends also?
Maybe Saturdays. I don't have a schedule yet. I mean, frankly, my husband is hoping it won't be weekends. So it won't be a lot on the weekends, I can assure you of that.
Is there a particular instrument that you,
Well, actually, I teach piano and cello, but this is classes, actually, so that you can learn to sing and learn to read music and play ukulele, so you can sit around a campfire with your friends and have a good time.
sign me up?
It's grown-ups too, so.
Do you have a problem with a condition that would limit the amount of students to 8 and not having more than 4 classes
No,
per day?
that would be fine. I believe me, that's as much as I would be looking for, so that would be fine.
You're not making any structural changes at school or anything?
No, we have a whole in-law suite, so it's plenty of room. I mean, it's a small in-law suite, but it's still plenty of room for a small class.
Frank? Got anything? Phil, anything else?
No?
Ray? George? Josh? We all got everything? Does anyone in the audience have questions or comments? Victor? Anything?
I think it's a great idea.
Okay, good. So you're speaking in favor of the application. There you go. Okay, so we have one neighbor that's in favor.
I'd like to go.
Well, good. So it seems well received. All right.
Mr. Chairman, there's one letter
Yes, what do you got?
I got from the Planning and Zoning Commission from Dennis Johnson, the Director of Health, dated April 1st, 2015. The applicant's proposed home music instruction classes do not conflict with the existing septic system capacity or location.
Anything else, or is that the only one?
That's it.
Wow, easy stuff. All right. Can I get a motion to close the public hearing?
Second.
All those in favor? So just sit and relax. We're going to enjoy this. Okay, can I get a motion to open Russo Real Estate, 421 Boston Street?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
I don't see anyone here representing them, so perhaps you could move on, and if they get here, we can come back to it.
Okay, so we're going to have to,
Continue the public hearing till later in the agenda, right?
yeah.
They might show up, but later tonight, so... I don't
Okay,
know.
so then, all right, so then we should,
Just wait, and then if they don't show up, then you can vote to continue to the
right,
15th.
okay, so then why don't we, can I get a motion to approve the revised agenda?
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. All right, so let's open deliberations on Ms. Yoxel and her music classes.
It seems straightforward. Oh, wait, I'll make a motion. Yeah, there we go.
voted that the Guilford Planning and Zoning Commission approve a special permit application for William and Jennifer Yaxel to provide music instruction classes at 50 Cooks Lane, map 122, lot 17-2, as shown on the application dated February 26, 2015, and as heard at a public hearing on April 1st, 2015. This application is approved with the following conditions: that a maximum of 8 students are allowed, and that no more than 4 classes per day are allowed. This application is approved based upon a finding that it conforms with the zoning code. The special permit is effective on April 10, 2015.
Second.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
So, okay.
Or did we just vote on it?
No, I was,
A little discussion.
sorry. All right, so
We have no discussion.
there is no discussion. I mean, this is pretty straightforward. So all those in favor, for real?
Aye.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Make music, make it beautiful. Okay. All right, so, we have to wait for the situation.
Sorry, we have two more things, we have two more items.
I'll talk with you.
Coastal management.
Okay, yeah, we can do coastal management. So, where's it? My agenda's gone again.
Mr. Chairman, we have an application to be received, a coastal management site plan from Mara Weissman, 117 Andrews Road, map 12, lot 76B, zone R5, coastal area management site plan, new 5-bedroom house with patios and pool. Receive and set public hearing date of May 1, 2015, section 273-91, and I'd like to put that receipt in the form of a motion.
Second.
Okay, so Reggie prevailed upon us to go to this seminar on a week ago Saturday, and Ray and I made a discovery that in order to be legal, we not only have to say when, but we have to say where. Right, Ray?
Correct.
All right.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to amend my motion to include the public hearing date of May 1st at the Community Center Monuckatuck Room, second floor at 7:30 p.m.
And I'll re-second it.
Okay, good. All right, so all those in favor of receiving? Aye. Okay. Site plan. You want to read this?
Yeah, sure. We also have a site plan for letter B for D. Jacob Marketplace Emporia LLC, the Marketplace at Guilford Food Center, 77 Whitfield Street, map 39, lot 91, zone C1, revision to site plan, add restaurant use, 40 seats, replace existing dumpsters in southwest corner of site with 4 totes at rear of building, remove fenced-in cooler at rear of building, add handicap accessible 14-foot by 6-foot rear entry located by common agreement with adjoining property owners, 6.5 feet from side lot line, parentheses, up to 6-foot setback reduction allowed, end parentheses, request to receive and hear application and defer action to April 15, 2015, section 273-97, article 9. And I'd like to amend this site plan request to include the location, which is the second floor Monuckatuck Room at the Guilford Community Center at 7:30 p.m. on April 15th, and I'd like to put that in the form of a motion.
I'll second it.
Second.
So can we discuss this a second?
The applicant is here to present the application.
Oh,
He just wants you to defer taking
This is
action.
not a special permit or a public hearing.
so why are we deferring action until April 15th?
Maybe
I
they
requested the applicant.
Oh,
Okay,
yeah.
so then this is more pertinent. I was reading, I believe, in the Guilford Courier, how the work has already started.
Some of the renovations have, yes. Not pertinent to the application under your jurisdiction. They're just renovating the existing store now. Before they can get a permit to create the restaurant component and put the addition on for the bathrooms, it requires planning and zoning approval and historic district approval, hopefully both of which will be obtained on the 15th of April. But the applicant wants to make the bulk of her presentation today. She also has to attend the Historic District Commission meeting on the 15th, which is the same time as your meeting. Hopefully they'll approve it then, you'll approve it then, and then she can get a building permit to do the additional work she wants to do.
Oh,
Okay, good.
so this is in order
Yeah.
for us to see here, isn't it?
All right, so we
This is-
have,
Yeah.
Thank you.
so we, done discussing, which we're just...
We just have to vote. We just have to,
let her do her presentation?
we have to vote aye to open up, to receive.
Okay, so
Call the question.
all those in favor?
Aye.
So, can we hear from her now?
Yeah, she's here.
Are we allowed to do that?
Maybe get that a little closer for you. Person job. So I'm happy to be here to explain our site plan application on behalf of the Marketplace Emploria LLC. This is comprised of local Guilford residents joining with the Rosa family to continue to provide marketplace downtown in the tradition since 1931 and for Guilford family. So you probably can see that things are going on. We're doing some wall finishing changes, et cetera, as you move along. But to orient you, this is Whitfield Street right here. I think almost everybody knows the location. The property consists of 77 Whitfield Street, which is the Guilford Food Center proper. We also are purchasing the 79 Whitfield Street, which is the chocolatier. The site plan application refers only to the Guilford Food Center property. So currently, the property extends out. There is a public parking area over here and a driveway here. So the first thing that we're doing is we're removing what is existing today, an enclosed fenced-in cooler area. That represents 100 and, let's see, let me read the right sign. It's a, I think it's 184 square foot area. We have figured out a way not to use that area anymore. It is a site, it is currently a site of disrepair. And it's an area that blocks actually some of the access to the building. Instead, we are going to be extending the current wall out 14 feet by 6. This does two things. It brings our entrance a little closer to the addition of a handicap accessible parking space, and it allows us to put in two gender-specific handicap accessible bathrooms. And this enables us to have those entranceways provide full access of doorways, as well as providing the space so we can have the 60-inch turning radius that's required for those who have accessibility issues. So we reduce actually the lot coverage by removing this area and putting in this proposed area. This line of the current building is actually within 10 feet of the side setback requirement of C1 zone. However, this extension of the line is actually 6.5 inches, 6 feet 5 inches from the property line, and we have Mr. Ifkovic's agreement of Pumpkin Enterprises is in concurrence with us going in about 3.5 feet off of the current side setback in accordance with by 273-87 requirement. So those two things, so the first thing is that we have an agreement with the neighbor that allows us to go instead of the 10 feet side setback to be within up to 5 feet. And we're reducing the lot coverage by getting rid of this area and extending this hallway. Additionally, today there are 3 dumpsters here in this area in the southwest corner. That area both blocks some access, they're unsightly, and it blocks snow removal. 2 of those we own. One of them is an adjacent property owner that's not supposed to be there. So we're removing those. One of 2 things that happens. It helps us with the appearance here of what a dumpster looks like downtown. But secondly, our employees tend to leave stuff in stages here, so the trash is right here, and then they take it at the end of the day. So we lose the unsightliness of the trash. Instead, we're working to more frequent pickup of a tub-style waste area. And there's actually a little outbuilding here, the building that's part of this building. And we're using that area to form a cardboard reclamation area where we'll store cardboard and tie it up. And so on days for recycling, we bring that material outside. Additionally, we have rented 33 Water Street as our catering center, and we have current trash and disposal area over there. So we actually expect some of the trash and cardboard recycling to be reduced in this plan. All right, so I was going to move to interior, but is there any questions about this? So you kind of get a sense of what's going on in the whole concept of the marketplace is to continue to provide all of the good things that Guilford Food Center has done, groceries, staples, great meats, deli area, but provide, in essence, the big changes that we want to provide a sitting area, so your option isn't always a sandwich to go. So what we're doing is removing the two main aisles of shelving that contain staples or groceries today, and we're replacing those with some shelving units here and here. And by moving to more frequent replenishment, we're able to hold a vast amount of the same SKUs with fewer shelf space. What stays the same is the meat and deli department are untouched. We have a cooler here for prepared foods, and we're adding back what was the original style of the store, a rear register, which allows us to check people out who are coming through the rear entrance. The front area is opened up. We have more than 5 feet aisles here in order to provide accessible aisleways for anyone coming in. The building itself already has handicap accessible doorways here. We're upgrading the doors to be a more attractive set of doors, but they remain in much the same style as they are today. The main areas you come in will be where our farm and produce area is, so bright, colorful from the street. Our seating area, some of you may have seen the Art Deco old-time bar that has come in for our storage of our coffees and teas display, as well as we are applying for a tavern permit that we will serve wine and beer in the afternoons and early evenings as an accent to the food. We don't view ourselves as a bar or a tavern. That piece was picked particularly because we were built in 1931. By the way, in 3 months during the heart of Depression, First National Stores decided to upgrade and build a supermarket in downtown Guilford. So we have a counter space. This height over here is 44 inches. We reduce it down in the area for ordering, and the register moves over here down to 36 inches, so we have access for those who might be wheelchair bound. The front area here is a grab-and-go area with a Coke Freestyle machine fountain, snacks also in shelving, and then a cooler of soft drinks. We moved what used to be the fridge and freezer and refrigerator section over to here. We maintain about a 3.5-foot entranceway, predominantly dictated by where the stairs are here. This is our addition of our 14 feet, 14 by 6 foot hallway. And that hallway enables, as we said, 2 things. It allows us to move our access to those who might be coming need handicap access a little closer to where they get out of their vehicle and not out in the elements as much. But more importantly, enables us to put 2 gender-specific handicap accessible bathrooms in with all the proper requirements for turning radius, door width, etc.
Wow. You're thorough.
Questions?
Frank?
Septic's okay, parking's okay.
Do we have any letters yet from anybody? Or
No.
So the septic, as it is, it supports the 40-seat plan, as it is current with safety factors in, and that's all we have. We have seating up here and here, the total 40.
Do you serve inside?
You'll have a
Indoor?
memo on that, don't you? Oh, excuse me.
I'm sorry, go ahead, finish.
You'll have a memo from the Director of Health at the meeting on the 15th.
Good. George?
Do you serve indoors? Do you have a place to sit and eat, lunch,
Yes.
drink?
This whole area is indoor, and this is the only place that you obviously could leave and go out with a coffee or tea or a
But-
juice drink,
okay, how
but
many
you
people can
cannot
you
go
see?
out with any alcoholic
Okay,
beverage.
okay. How many people will you be able to sit at one time?
This holds currently 32,
Mhm.
and these 4 areas with counters, which have 4 seats looking out at the green, will hold 8, which is a total of 40.
Is that self-service, or do you have waiters?
It's self-service, so again, what this factor is, what we've taken is all the good things about the Guilford Food Center and providing a place to sit down and enjoy it, if you so choose, as opposed to my partner and I sitting out in our cars eating our sandwiches in December because we couldn't eat our sandwiches indoors.
And you can have a drink too.
You could have a beverage of your choice as long as it's a soft
Alcoholic?
drink, coffee, tea,
I'm just
juice,
wondering if you need a
or beer and
special
wine.
permit for
beer and wine.
beer and wine.
And we need planning and zoning approval of the site plan and the change to restaurant before we can pursue the tavern license with the state of Connecticut.
Okay, what are your hours going to be?
Our current hours, we're going to maintain on Mondays through Wednesdays, which is 8 to 7. On Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, we'll go to 8 to 8, and we'll increase our hours on Sunday. Instead of 8 to 1 to 8 to 4 or 5, we'll be in line with what the chocolatiers' hours are.
Wow. So potentially someone could just go there for a glass of wine.
They could. We think that when they sit in the midst of all the beautiful food and whatever, they don't want to have just the wine, but they could.
Wow. It's like a date spot.
So,
The hours.
as we'd like to see, because I think that there's some confusion when you say you're converting to a restaurant. We like to do this, that beverage is an accent to the food. We have been a food store since even past before that building was built in the Landon House. There was a food type store, economy store element. So food is our main delivery. Beverage is the accent that helps that delivery, and we want to maintain a family atmosphere. And it's why we just discarded a 1930 front of the bar, because we thought it looked too much like a bar for the family arena that we want to have in our building, a new counter in front of this piece.
What did you say about what's happening on the street side in terms of exterior improvements or changes?
So this area that,
No, not the backside.
the front?
Whitfield Street guy.
So we are, we're trying to freshen up, if you would, or rejuvenate the front of the building, taking into account, this was the original, this is the 1950s building of the original Guilford Food Center. You know, Coca-Cola was a big part of that sign. It's an antique sign that's tin with porcelain. And if you look at the food center today, we need a little work around the front wood and the doors. So for us, the transition moves from something like this to something like this. So one of the changes we're making is we're going actually back to the colors of the original First National Store sign, going back to the black with the white. The First National Store sign went across the entire front of the building and was at 33 inches high. They built flashings above and below to hold it. The current sign is 30-plus feet wide and 24 inches high. So we're actually reducing the sign coverage of the building from the 30 feet by 24 inches to 170 inches by 33 inches. But we're keeping it in the mode we were inspired by the original building built back in 1931. We are upgrading the wood under the windows, and those will be stained in a walnut cherry color. We're replacing the doors with a Thermo-Tru door stained again in that same color, so we're trying to improve that. And those wonderful red big wooden carts would be reduced to a smaller area. We'd like to put two style bistro tables within that are only 24 inch in depth. These are 24 inch in depth. The current coverage today is 30 inches and has been from the day of its inception. There's always been stuff there that's been part of the history of the food center. We'd like to bring that back from 30 inches to 24 inches, and we purposely have chosen two bistro tables with only two chairs, placed it at opposite quarters, 30 feet apart, so no one would come with bringing two chairs over and blocking the sidewalk access.
Is there a second floor?
There is no second. There's an attic in the building.
Okay, you're not going to use that?
That attic will be, actually, we're going to take some of the mechanical that's currently exposed from the west corner of the building and bring it inside the attic to try to clean up a little bit of that back area.
Any additional lighting going in?
We are not adding any exterior lighting to the front, as there is a street light there that lights up, and that would be contrary to how the front of the building looks. The rear access here, there was a light here that we're just moving from here to here to light the entrance.
You're going to be adding or expanding the grease trap at all?
The both the grease trap and the septic were reviewed by Mr. Johnson in terms of applicability for going from where we are today to the 40-seat area, and we have ample coverage for that.
How come we got no letters on that?
You will, before you act. At your next meeting, you'll have a letter. That's part of the reason why you're not acting today, is because Dennis hasn't written his review. I think he's resolved, he's approved all these things, but he didn't have a chance today to write a memo. So he will have that before you are asked to act on this.
Walter?
So the width of the sign in front of the building is currently 23 feet, and you're reducing it to 14.
It's currently 30 feet.
It's currently 30 feet. The original was 23, and you're reducing it to 14 and a half?
So here we go. The original was 33 feet wide. The current sign is about 30 feet wide, and the sign is going to be whatever 170 inches divided by 12 is about 15, 16 feet. So we're reducing the length of the sign. The original sign was 33 inches high. The current sign is 24 inches high. We're going back up to the 33-inch height so that we fit under the flashing that is a part of the building that held the original sign, protected the original sign.
All these exterior improvements will also require historic district approval.
Yep. Yep. Josh?
Mr. Chairman, you had noted that there is some renovation going on, but we're primarily dealing with the surfaces, the finishes here, the flooring here, things that are not relevant right now, applicable to our extension here and the change of use here.
Gotcha.
We'd like to renovate it in under 3 months if they could build this building in 3 months.
That's aggressive. Good luck.
Richard? Guess we'll be seeing them on the 15th for final approval.
Yes, we will. Ray, anything?
Sounds exciting.
No, very well done, the presentation.
Nicely done, really.
Mr. Chairman, we do have a letter in the file from Dennis Johnson, actually.
Oh, we do?
Yeah.
Oh,
This is to the Guilford Planning and Zoning Commission from Dennis Johnson, our Guilford Director of Health, dated April 1, 2015. Subject, Russo Real Estate, 421 Boston Street. map-
Wrong one.
That's a different application.
Russo Real Estate.
We're 77 with
Nothing. Thanks.
I didn't think we had.
Moving on. Withdraw. I went through that pretty
Nice
good.
try, nice try.
Yeah, right.
It would have been good. All right, any other questions?
I just wondered, do you have any patrons outside on the sidewalk or anything like that, tables out there?
Yes, so currently right now, we have these big red units that display product and have had other units out there. This building, my understanding, has been grandfathered in and had display of products very much like Page's. It's been part of its history since day one. What we're proposing to do is do two things. One, 2 smaller units for things like produce in the applicable months, to go from the 30-inch depth down to the 24-inch depth, and 2 small-style bistro tables, 24 inches in depth, with 2 chairs each, separated by 30 feet to negate the possibility people might bring chairs from one end all the way across. And it's predominantly for an accent. It's right next door to, on this side of the building, there's a bench in front of the chocolatier on both sides. So we're trying to keep in the flavor. We picked them out to be a little bit more older-looking style table.
Will you have trash receptacles out there?
We're actually talked to Rick Maynard of Parks and Recreation. We are planning to purchase the similar size recycle bin and garbage can that you see on the green and put them in front and maintain them in terms of a store, because the fact is we don't believe the tubs on the sidewalk that's a little further down both hold everything on a weekend, and secondly, they don't get maintained until the trash comes and picks up. So our goal is that it's important for our business presence, but it's more important for our town that everything is picked up neat and clean, and we have people who are assigned to work on that every day, keep the front of the store to the side of the store, the back of the store neat.
Great, good.
Any floral displays or any other additions or
Any?
floral displays, plants or?
I said anything that we might do here would be more seasonal, so you might have potted hanging plant. We've negated the idea of having a pot. As I said, I tend to be clumsy, so if you put it there near the doorway, I will trip over it. So it will just be those that, and those will store during the winter season for easy snow removal.
And these outside tables, there won't be any waiter service to buy your
No.
food inside?
So there's 2 things. One is They are for convenience for some people on a nice day. Our predominant view is that the best view in Guilford is right here through our front windows, and we have chairs and a counter facing outside, so we think that's the spot you want to sit in. Those will be for someone who might have a dog with them. Once again, we will control that alcohol, wine and beer is only sold inside, is not allowed to leave this table area. And then secondarily, people could bring their food out, but we will be maintaining, make sure the trash is not left in that area.
That's it? Nothing else?
I was just saying, you don't plan a bakery in there, do you?
We currently have a bakery license where we do bake up things like turnovers and cookies and muffins daily, several times a day. And bake up our bread. We'll continue to have some of those kinds of bakery items as well as bring some artisan breads. What would you like to see?
I wouldn't like to compete with you. You seem to have everything covered. Anything else?
No, the only thing I would ask is to just check the dumpsters. I know the smaller containers, they look great there, but for practicality in this type of business, I would imagine you would need to pick up almost every day unless you have about 12 of them out there.
So currently, the 2 dumpsters that exist support the current grocery business and catering business. Our catering business is moving, its office and where we operate out of has moved to 33 Water Street. We acquired the Mad Gourmet business and its site, and that has its own fenced-in dumpster area that we will use in the manner that the Mad Gourmet did. That will reduce our total trash load coming out of 77 Whitfield and the cardboard load. So we have a whole building for cardboard and recyclables that we will store inside, and then the dumpsters are, the tubs, excuse me, whatever they are, not tubs. The totes are only used for waste itself.
Which would still probably be significant, though.
It's probably a reduction of about 60% of our waste.
60%. That's impressive.
Looks like all that's left is for us to approve you next time. I said, looks like all that's left is for us to approve you next time.
Well, I hope so.
Pretty good job canvassing you tonight.
Great. Thank you so very much. We appreciate your time.
Very nice. Good presentation. Anyone in the audience real quick, ask a question, or Brian, please come up, Brian. We haven't heard from you.
Well, I'm only going to come up because I'm not going to be able to be here on the 15th. You know, I know you're going to miss me, but obviously you saw a very comprehensive plan. We've had the pleasure of the last few weeks or months, us in the Town Hall South, the planning and zoning, and Reggie and health and everybody, fire, everybody's been in and looked. I mean, I think this is really an exciting opportunity for Guilford to be able to continue the food center in a different fashion, but to continue it. The Roses are remaining involved. Dee and her business partners are also Guilford folks that want to be involved, will be involved every day. I mean, they're really taking an asset and adding some new life to it that I think is going to be good and beneficial to the town. You're seeing a lot of it. So just want to fully support this project and congratulate Dee and her partners for coming forward with this. I think it's going to be good for everybody.
Thanks, Brian.
Thank you.
Steve?
I really want to echo what Brian has said. I mean, you know, you sit here many nights. I've been here far fewer, but rarely have I seen a proposal that's come forward where it's been as organized, as neat, and everything else. And everything I've heard over the last couple of months is attention to detail and attention to the character of Guilford and the historical character. I think we need to support it.
Thank you. Anyone else? Kurt? Anything to add? Victor? Give it up.
I'm all in favor of it. I have no objection at all. I would just focus in on the septic, as Frank brought out. That could be an issue, especially if it's, you know, takeout is different than sit-in, and you're going to get pedestrians that are going to go by, use the bathroom because it's there, it's available, where right now it's really not open to the public. So those issues, once they're resolved, I have no objection at all.
May I comment on it?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So there have been several times that the septic and the grease traps have been expanded. and in fact has been expanded to support, again, a lot of our catering cooking, as well as our prepared foods and meat department and deli foods. So in looking at the current capabilities of it, there is a factor that the health department looks at, and putting a safety factor for seasonal use and casual usage. That 40 is a level with a safety factor in it, considering all those things. So I think when you get the notice from Dennis Johnson, I think that'll clarify everything.
Nice. You're wonderful. That's a great presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Do we make a motion to continue it now, or was that already made?
You don't need to, you received it, you can table it.
So you can have a motion to table until April the 15th.
So moved. Second.
All those in favor?
Mr. Chairman, on the previous application, the Maura Weissman, I think we said, in fact, I know we did, May 1st as the public hearing date?
Yes.
That's not correct. It's May 6th.
I think, Walter, did you bring that motion?
Yeah,
I think I seconded it.
That is the first Wednesday in May.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a new motion on the Mara Weissman application to move the public hearing from May 1st, which makes no sense, to May 6th at 7:30 at the Nathaniel B. Green Community Center, Minokituk Room, second floor.
I'll second that.
Or we could hold a special meeting. Call the question.
All those in favor? Great. Okay, so, it's a rest of you problem. Okay, so, we are up to special permit, Sally and Michael Ziskin, 579 Lake Road, map 63.
This item should also say receive and set public hearing for May 6th.
Okay,
So moved.
Second.
all those in favor?
At the
Okay.
community center.
Yeah, just
At the community center.
get over this and just make sure that we had community center on this.
Yeah.
Right. I don't know, they said to make it legal and legit, we need to do that, so
From here on out, that's what we'll do.
that's what we walked away from that seminar. We spent, I don't even know, 8 hours at the seminar.
And that's what we took away.
That, and we had some box lunch.
Well worth the money.
It's great, huh?
It was wonderful. I'm going to go back. It was snowing.
Georgia in the snow.
Drove up in the snow and sat there for 8 hours.
That's right.
All right, so where are we at? Other. 90-day extension to file Sunset Meadow. This is the third time around. I guess,
It's actually the second time.
It's a second request.
It says third, but it should say second.
okay, so I don't have any problem with it.
I'll make a motion.
Would you?
Sure. My motion is to have a 90-day extension to file Sunset Meadow subdivision.
Second.
Before we say yes, this is all perfectly within the law that we can keep granting these, yes?
Yes.
This is the second and last time it could be granted.
All right, so this is it for them?
Yes.
Okay, good. So all those in favor? Aye. Okay. Okay, so we're up to the discussion of whether soft serve ice cream is a permitted use at the Lakeside Feed Farm Stand.
I think Reggie can fill us in on why this is on the agenda and what this is all about.
Sure, that'd be great.
Chuck can help us out too, if need be.
Good, I'm glad Chuck's here. Thanks for coming, Chuck.
Hi, Gary. The reason this is on your agenda is because we have a stipulation in 273-245C, which I will give a copy to each of you. That says at least 50% of all farm products must be produced by the farmer of a farm stand. So the question is, for me, Lakeside Feed has a large feed store which was approved by special permit by the commission in the year 2000. And at that time, if you wanted to have a farm stand, you did have to have special permit approval. And they did receive that. Now there's a additional use being proposed, which was going to be an ice cream parlor. And I had a building permit, and so I called up Tony Schiano. She's She's the owner of the property, she and her husband. And I asked her about it. Here, I just wanted to give you a copy of the approval letter for the farm stand, and it said farm stand and sale of non-farm products, okay? And my question is, it's a two-part question. Number one is the making and dispensing of soft-serve ice cream, which would be serving food. And I've been told that they will get this ice cream and then presumably go outside and eat it. Is this an accessory use to the farm stand? And the second question is, this ice cream is not part of the product that's produced by the farm, or maybe you think it is.
Is it even, it's soft serve? So it may not even be dairy, it may be like some sort of...
Well, that may be.
Ice cream.
And I just wanted to give you a copy of the special permit application, which you did approve, and it's under appeal, saying that they were going to turn their guest house into an ice cream shop. And I understand now from Tony that she's not going to have an ice cream shop, but simply she's going to convert that space into a farm stand and actually put items that are produced on her farm, wool from her llamas, feathers from her peacocks, peacock eggs, and things of that sort. She's going to sell them. And she's here with her attorney, and you might want to listen to them and see what they say.
Great.
Perhaps before you get there, further background information on this. You may remember you approved this ice cream standard a year or so ago. It was appealed. Chuck can acquaint you with the status of the lawsuit, which I think has been dismissed, and that's part of the reason why this application is before us tonight, because of the disposition that the court made with regard to this whole matter.
Just briefly, by way of background, the commission approved a special permit a couple of years ago for the sale of ice cream on the premises as far as under the farm stand regulations. But frankly, I think because all the prior uses on the site had been approved as a special permit, but in reality, you had amended your regulations in a few years before that at the request of the Agricultural Commission that had modified the regulations, and in particular deleted the requirement that a farm stand be allowed by special permit. So actually it is not, a special permit is not required for a farm stand, it's not even a site plan. So when we had argued the case, we had briefed and argued the case, and the judge kind of pointed that out to us, and so the judge said they didn't even need a special permit for this particular use. Didn't address the other question. It was under appeal on the questions as to whether the use was permitted and whether they meet the requirements and so forth, but didn't even reach that issue and dismissed the appeal. So now I understand, because no special permit is required under the regulations. But what that does mean is that if the use is allowed, then it goes through Reggie, because they come in for a building permit to sign off, and then she makes a decision, and her decision may or may not be appealed, and it can go up in litigation another way. So I think she's here looking for advice from you guys as to interpretation of the regulation, and understand that the plan that is proposed is different than actually what you approved as a special permit.
I heard Ken Slater for the record, and as Ms. Reed said, Gennaro and Tony Sciano, as well as Patty Mackenzie Sciano, were all here. And I heard, Mr. Chairman, you were enjoyed the bad weather, most members of the commission may know, but Chuck was one of the great speakers they had during that long-standing meeting that you had on Saturday, and I helped him set it up, and I got stuck with it. Not that I mind vegetables, I do, but there was a boxed vegetable lunch that I got stuck with that hopefully you showed something different.
Oh, you got the, yes, you got the vegetable sandwich.
That's what I get stuck with, yes.
Sorry.
I did too, but it was good.
I do want to, when I saw Chuck was kind enough to send me the agenda along, and he and I were both surprised when we got the call from the judge, basically, because we were vigorously defending your commission's approval of the previous application for a special permit that would convert what is an accessory apartment into space where the farm would also be selling ice cream. And I know a number of farms. My son actually got picked on by somebody here in Guilford who was going to school with at Xavier. And I live in Hebron right now, and he made fun of it for being a cow town. And when I was out visiting the farm, I was able to take the picture coming in to Guilford that gives great praise to the fact that this is an agricultural community. So I was able to give that picture to my son, who shared it with his buddy at school, and said, I guess I'm not the only one from a cow town. But this town has a long historical history of agriculture. And as I think you may all seen, there are a lot of the farms that, as part of the reaching out to their customers that come in, I have some, there's actually, that sell ice cream or sell those things along with their products. The application that was here before was actually a little more of the space, I think, was going to be devoted towards ice cream. And what's being proposed, when I saw it on the agenda, I was concerned because what was really going on was similar to the applicant that was before us. The folks came in and my clients filed contractor went in and actually pulled a building permit for the electrical service, which would be necessary you could run freezers from it, as well as you can do a soft serve ice cream machine off of that power. But they didn't present all the kind of information that I think would have been necessary to make a decision about the regulation that we're about to talk about, which says that if you have a farm stand, which is now by right, that you have to have no more than at least 50% of the products have to be sold that are raised at the farm. So late this afternoon, in fairness to Reggie, she might not have even seen it yet, but the Scanos did come down this afternoon and submit some additional material to give some description, which I'll go over, about what they plan to do there. And I'll hand a few of these out, but they just quickly sketched out that what they're going to do is they're going to have a number of produce displays, and there's photographs in the same package, and I'll hand them out in just a minute, but there are produce displays in several places. They'll also have a counter, and on one end of the counter will be the freezer for hard ice cream. And they were also, because some kids like the soft serve ice cream, they were going to have a machine that just mixes up the soft serve so you can serve some soft serve. But again, the counter would also include some more produce display. There's some circular stairs. There's an existing utility room and an existing bathroom, and then some more counter space. And what they're proposing to do there is not actually to sell the products that Reggie had commented on. Those are things that were part of the list of what was part of the feed store when a special permit was issued years ago for Lakeside Feed. Things like the ostrich eggs, things like peacock feathers. What is being proposed here is, right now, if you've been there, they do the typical temporary farm stand for most of their produce. You go there and it's an honor system, and there's a bucket, you put your cash in and you take your zucchini out. But some farms, to provide a better service for their customers and be able to manage their produce instead of putting it out in the sun on those temporary things, your regulations allow a more permanent farm stand. So to convert this accessory apartment into a seasonal stand, unlike the permit that was issued for Lakeside Feed, which is a year-round store, and all of their produce, what they plan to sell was listed and was not subject to the 50% rule. This will be focused on what they produce at the farm and they will, in addition to what the farm, sell ice cream. They estimate that at least 80% of the products that they're going to sell are going to be the ones that are produced from the farm. And I'll give you the list in a minute, but it's a long one. It includes a whole variety of vegetables that are grown there. It also some chicken eggs. It also is some meat. They'll raise some livestock, cows or pigs that they will sell meat from. And those will all be on display as the season progresses. The different things will be sold. Maple syrup too. I learned that. I didn't realize they have a bunch of their trees capped. So they have there's a sugar shack within view of their feed store, and they produce the maple sugar from the sap that comes from this particular farm. So that long list of products. So I mentioned the meat, which is chicken, eggs, beef, or pork, strawberries, blueberries, fava beans, string beans, sugar snap peas, onions, potatoes, squash, zucchini, carrots, radishes, corn stalks and gourds, popcorn, Indian corn, tomatoes, eggplant, chili peppers, bell peppers, kale, pumpkins, dried flowers, and fresh flowers, cucumbers, celery, Swiss chard, fennel. Getting close here, acorn squash, watermelon, spinach, okra, cantaloupe, beets, Brussels sprouts, grapes, and maple syrup that I mentioned before. So,
Councilor, just before you move on from this, you're talking a lot about how the applicant meets the 15% requirement. Just rolling back to a question that might come before that. How is it within our authority to require this applicant to sell 50% products that are produced by the applicant? And if we're requiring it, if we're allowing this kind of farm stand as of right, are they also allowed then possibly to come to us for some kind of other permit if they want to only sell 35% of their own stuff at a farm stand?
okay. Where it comes from is your regulations, you have the whole chapter devoted to agriculture. And in that chapter is a section of farm stands. And at one point, when Lakeside Feed was approved, you required a special permit for that kind of stand. What you've subsequently done is adopted a regulation that says farm stands are permitted by right. So it would be something that if zoning enforcement officer was satisfied that it met the regulations, she just issued a zoning permit, so we wouldn't be back before you. And frankly, that's what the Superior Court judge ruled, is that we didn't need to be before you the last time when you issued the special permit for ice cream to be sold in the space that we're talking about right now. And that is that the farm stand is allowed by right. It's just, I think what the zoning enforcement officer is looking for some advice on is how you might interpret that rule that says that 50% comes from there. Because I think there's really a couple of issues. I don't think it's an issue of accessory use, because the information that I have here is this is not going to be a ice cream shop. It's going to be the seasonal farm stand in which ice cream is going to be sold from it. So under your rules, because it specifically says that a building or other structure may be used for the sale of fruit, vegetables, or other products of the farm in which is located, provided that a setback is required. At least 50% of all farm products must be produced at the farmer of the stand. Products may be produced on any land the farm stander owns, leases, or owns. Up to 20% of the products sold may be farm-related products. The remaining products must be Connecticut grown. In times of crop failure, products that are typically grown in Connecticut may be sold during the season of their availability in Connecticut. So there's really two different ways in which I think the zoning enforcement officer could conclude that the sale of ice cream is permitted there. One would be,
I'm
yes.
sorry, if I could just try to get this. So what we have before us, there's an application for a building permit. And that building permit is going to be for this ice cream parlor. Electrical work where this activity will take place.
To upgrade the service.
Okay, so if 50% of what's going to be sold there comes from the farm or more, we've already passed that requirement. Why wouldn't the ice cream fit into up to 20% of the products sold, maybe farm related? If we find that soft serve ice cream is farm related, we could fit it into that bucket, right?
The question is, what do we do with the feed store? Because that's a whole bunch of different items that are not produced on the farm.
So if you add up that plus what they're proposing here, it's going to be more than 20%. Is that what you're saying?
I'm concerned that that's the case. I do have the...
I can
So maybe, can we zero in on that? Because
I can tell you right now that if you were going to add the two together, these folks could never have a stand.
Okay.
They couldn't. And that is because your commission approved the lakeside feed at a point in time where you didn't have to have 50%. So if you've been in the feed store, there's no question there is a lot of products that are sold there.
And those are not farm produced.
And a lot of them are not. There are some, like for example, on the list of things that would be in this seasonal stand, pumpkins, they would be stacked in front of Lakeside Feed. If you wanted to buy a pumpkin, that was there. You can get some chicken eggs there now. But with the exception of those things, and I think corn stalks, with the exception of those three things that are on the list, this long list that I'll hand out, everything else that is produced on the farm was getting sold on these temporary stands out front. And so what's being proposed is, instead of that temporary stand out front, we want to create the seasonal stand. And we think that seasonal stand has to be, excuse the word stand, has to stand on its own. That you've approved the lakeside feed, and that's not subject to the 50% rule. So we believe if we wanted to take and create a seasonal stand where the produce that's now being sold in these temporary stands will be housed in there, that new space, which doesn't exist today, has to comply with the 50% rule. But that you'd be penalizing them. They have a legal non-conforming right to continue the lakeside feed. So to just have the seasonal stand in this existing space, we think the right interpretation of your regulations is to say that the zoning enforcement officer has to confirm that this space is being devoted to at least 50%. But you're not going to have to give you the list of dog food or whatever that's sold in lakeside feed in order to do this.
So is it what you're telling us today, that the only way that we would be able to reject this special permit, or not special permit, this application, building permit, is if we determine that the feed store is a part of this separate stand that you're proposing? Is that the only way that you could see us rejecting this building permit?
Well, I think that if what we were proposing was just an outright ice cream stand and it had there wasn't products that were sold in there, I think that might be problematic. I think the real issue that we're presenting is do we have to give the zoning enforcement officer a running list of all the products we sell out of the old feed store in order to be able to use space that exists right now as farm stands? That we don't. That right exists, and that we continue to be able to do that. You gave us that right, and that's something that we're protected to be able to do. If we now want to take, and let's just pretend this was a 100-acre park property. If we wanted to put a stand on the other end, and we wanted to sell tomatoes and basil in the other side of the property, you can't hold the fact that you gave us the farm stand that let us sell dog food and horse food that wasn't produced at the farm against us and tell us that we won't be able to have a farm stand over there. We think that what we're proposing ought to stand on these regulations.
Tell me a little bit how this isn't something like increasing a nonconformity. In other words, we did approve what you were doing, so we can't take that away. That's grandfathered. But by allowing you to do more and exceed more than the 20%, aren't we increasing the nonconformity?
No, because two reasons. One is what you have right now is you have the lakeside feed, which is not a non-conforming use in the sense that it's an agriculture-related use, but it is non-conforming with respect to the amount of products that are sold out of that store.
That's right. You're grandfathered and you're protected.
Right.
So
that's protected. Now, if we take an accessory apartment, all right, and now we take the products that we weren't selling in the feed store, all right, I'll acknowledge that there are a couple of them, but for the majority of what's being sold in this new space is fully compliant. How are we expanding a nonconformity? We haven't expanded the nonconformity in the existing building, and the space we're using now is fully compliant with your 50% rule.
Well, but when you look at it in total, with that stand, you're over the 20% to begin with, which you're grandfathered, and no argument there, but you're increasing it even more. That's what I'm having.
We're not, because we're still selling, we're not changing the ratio of anything. We're we're saying, by right now, we've got the farm stand where all the products are sold on that driveway. If we're just basically housing what can be sold in some additional space. So we're not, if we were coming in and we were going to be selling ostrich feathers in this new space, or something, brand new, that, or frankly, another, if we were shipping deck chairs, if we were taking a bunch of stuff that we were selling in Lakeside Feed, and we were using, this space now, we'd be expanding what we were doing in Lakeside Feed to another area. What we're suggesting is it really truly is a different use. With the exception of eggs, and if that was important to you, that we don't sell eggs out of this space, we won't. But the pumpkins didn't go inside Lakeside Feed. The corn stalks weren't inside Lakeside Feed. All of this produce wasn't in Lakeside Feed. These are all things that are raised, and now, rather than have people come in and put money in the jar, you can come into an air-conditioned space. If it's a rainy day, you can pull up into, and you can buy the vegetables.
So let me check this. So then what you're saying is that each new building that you build, you get 50% of what's in there has to be produced on the farm, and you get 20% up to 20% that you sell in that building can be farm related. For each new building that you build. It's not look at it in total.
Right, which is what if a farmer came in right now and said, I'd like to put, I don't want to lose my thought. If a farmer came in right now and they had nothing on their property, and they wanted to put this space up to sell the very products we're proposing to sell, it's fully compliant. And you can have more than one stand because they're allowed.
That was my question. So it wouldn't be a problem for them to say, okay, I want to have a separate farm stand for potatoes, a separate farm stand for pumpkins, a separate farm stand for peas, and each one of those in that farm stand, like they could set up 15 farm stands, or however many, I guess, for lot coverage would be the issue.
Not even.
Not even. So they could set up as many farm stands as they would like. And each one of those farm stands, they could sell what Ray was just discussing, the
50 and 20 rule would apply to each one.
Would apply to each one of them. Is that what's our position?
Sure, and if you did that, then it would apply in the aggregate as well.
If it applied in the aggregate there, why wouldn't it apply in the aggregate with the feed store?
Because then you're penalizing us for what you've previously approved. You approved it at a window of time in which you didn't care about the ratio. So you're letting us sell ostrich eggs, you're selling us sell dog food, you're letting us do that, all right? That's permitted. If a farmer comes in and wants to do exactly what we want to do today, there's no question in my mind that it's permitted under your 50% rule. So why should Lakeside Feed not be able to do that when every other farmer could do it? Simply because this commission has approved another building on that property at a point in time where it wasn't required to meet it. So what I'm saying is that should stand on its own. It's subject to you have issued a special permit. So that has to operate in accordance with a special permit. But if you want to be able to sell things that weren't even sold in there, because I will give you the fact that if we were going to take a bunch of stuff that we were selling in there and we wanted to basically expand like a Trojan horse, expand the Lakeside Feed Store and say we're just going to use this accessory space and just simply move all the stuff we're selling in Lakeside Feed and ignore the 50% rule, I think that would go to your point about expanding a non-conforming use. But when
this is actually your first farm stand, per se.
Yeah, that's what my question.
It was approved as a farm stand.
You're not going to describe, the feed store's not a farm stand.
This is your one and only, this is
You approved it. You approved the Lakeside Feed under the old regulations that allow farm stores.
So this so it does go directly to Josh's point in that this is a second farm stand.
Absolutely. Just like in a resident, in a mall, in a commercial plaza, all right, you can have 6, 8, 10, 14, single-family zone, another story. Your regulations say, what are you allowed to have? You're allowed to have one dwelling on a parcel. That's it. But if you have commercially zoned property, you could have a couple of, you have to meet setbacks, you have to meet, but the use has to be legal. So in this case, if a farmer did want to have potatoes in one temporary stand or wanted to have it shielded from the elements, and sell the potatoes there and wanted to sell tomatoes somewhere else. Now, realistically, are you going to have farmers coming in with dozens of farm stands? Of course not. But the regulations allow farm stands. So we can put up, we believe we can put up under this regulation this farm stand, and it should be judged on its own, just like everybody else's farm stand would be judged on its own when they come in with an application, and you have to be satisfied that it meets that. So there's another layer to that, which is making sure you're comfortable with the fact that the ice cream is a farm-related product. But as long as you're satisfied with that fact, and obviously it's
What's not clear to me is if this applies to every single little farm stand that's on there or the whole property. It has to net out. I don't know, Chuck, do you have any insight into what's going on, especially since you were involved in the case and briefly? It's a different issue.
Yeah, we looked at a different issue on appeal. I haven't.
So I have a question, and it's different than what they're talking about, and it may not apply, so I apologize if it doesn't. But is this not really a restaurant? Are you not preparing food? You're like, hear me out. If they were a beef farmer and they got some beef and ground it up from their cows, and then they fried it in hamburgers and served it to people, like you're doing with this ice cream, is this not a restaurant use?
I think you could do that. I mean, they're not, there's no seating, there's no table service. It's just, people, you can buy a candy bar in a lot of places, and they're selling you something
Right, but
that you can eat.
this is processed. You're not cooking it with heat. You're cooking it with cold. You're preparing milk or cream or whatever it is in the soft serve mix, and you're putting it through a machine that aerates it and makes it cold, and you're giving a finished food product to a customer. And I don't know that that's a farm stand use.
Well, can you sell pies at a farm stand?
I would think so.
So it's a finished product.
But are you consuming the pie there? You're going to consume the ice cream cone there.
They might, they may or may not, but
Honey maple syrup, those are finished products. I think farms can sort of, if they, like there are such lax rules, and I don't want to speak out of turn, but I think like, if I had a potato farm in Guilford, I can make potato chips and sell those potato chips because I have a potato farm. I think that's under the Connecticut.
But the question here is, as he brought out to you, the lakeside females non-conformity. Well, if we, let's say it was a non-conforming building on a piece of property, in other words, maybe it exceeded lot coverage. If they wanted to add on to that building, they wouldn't be able to unless they got a variance.
That's true, too.
Is this something that we should?
So do you believe that possibly the appropriate path for them is to go through the ZBA process first?
No,
I mean, if someone wanted
I'm
to-
asking the commission what they think about this, Should I approve that building permit?
I think if there's a legal question here, and Chuck could probably correct me if I'm wrong, that we don't really, obviously this is a litigious subject, right? You have parties that are...
The site.
Yeah, the site. You're going to have parties that are being set. And as a town, we probably shouldn't make the wrong decision on this one. If there is some sort of legal answer to this aggregate or not aggregate in, grandfathered properties, unless you have sort of a legal, case law or something that would suggest that this happened over in Middletown or in Hebron or something, where when the farm stands 50-20 rule, I don't even know if all towns have stuff like that.
I've never seen a 50% rule like that, but there is a lot of law on non-conforming uses.
Yeah.
And that you have a constitutionally protected right to do what's allowed in the non-conforming use. And I really don't think this is analogous to having a non-conforming building that you want to add to. What we're asking to do is, I don't think there's any way you can't be penalizing us for the existing non-conforming use that you permitted. By reading it differently than it needs to stand on its own. If we want to sell new produce in an area and we meet the 50% rule, if you aggregate it with what you permitted during a period of time, because selling that produce, it's if you wanted a commercial use in a residential zone, that's a non-conforming use.
So why not? Why can't we penalize?
I understand what you're saying. We can't penalize what's already there. What my concern is that by adding this, we're increasing above, I guess, at least 50% of the products are still going to be okay, maybe, but up to 20% of the products sold may be farm-related. So if we assume that this ice cream is farm-related, we're going to go over 20% based on this plus the fee. And so it's not really, I see what you're saying about penalizing you, but we're not penalizing you, to me, would mean we're taking away what your grandfather to do, which is already not permitted under this regulation. You want to increase it. If you look at it all as one, if you look at it as separate pieces, I see your point.
Well, no, if these are the products we're going to sell in the new space, all right? And we're not selling these products in the existing lakeside feed. how are we possibly increasing a if anything, we're reducing the ratio of the non-farm product. How are we possibly increasing? A lot of times you're dealing with non-conformities.
I'm not concerned about the 50, I'm just saying you're increasing the 20%. Yours more of the percentage is products that are not produced on the farm.
It can't be. If this is true, if we're selling these products and we sell one more non-farm produced, how have we made the ratio on the farm?
Already selling those products?
No, that's what I'm saying. There's three exceptions. But even those aren't inside. The only one that's inside Lakeside Feed are the eggs.
Gotcha.
And if that's important, we won't put eggs in this new space. But the pumpkins are sold on the property and they're stacked up outside of the feed store. So that's a closer call, whether or not that's in the feed store or not. But the rest of this stuff are the types of things that either they're going to be growing or ones that they're growing now go out on the temporary stands
Well, let me just
beside
ask
the
you this,
driveway.
across all the property with everything you're planning, is at least 50% of all the products produced on the farm?
If you, on Lakeside
Counting
Feed?
everything, the feed and the new stand that you're proposing.
No, that was the thing. If you were going to hold us to the 50% rule based on what you approved before, we can't do what any other farmer in Guilford can do. And there's no way that that's not a penalty. And it's no way that this is increasing a nonconformity, because we're not taking a use that's not allowed in the zone and putting it somewhere. We're not increasing the ratio, whatever's going on in Lakeside Feed. By simple math, if this is what we're doing, we can't be increasing the ratio of the non-conforming on the property in general. We're just, essentially, we're looking to put walls around the space the space is already there, I'm sorry. The space is already there. We just want to move the stuff indoors that we're selling out of the temporary stands, and then we're going to include ice cream and maple syrup.
So what you're saying is that if we don't approve something like this, there's nothing else that is not farm-related or grown actually directly from the farm that they can sell on their property. Because if we include the feed store and all other farm stands going forward, we would be prohibiting them from selling pecan pies, or sweet potato pies from a farm down the road that wants to use their farm stand. Is that what you're saying?
Right, because you approved a use in which the non-farm produced, they're farm-related. They're farm-related. That's what you approved, and they've been doing that. That's what Lakeside Feed is. But you approved something in which it's not meeting the 50% rule. So if you're going to say you can't have a new stand anywhere else on the property unless that's brought into compliance, we can't have them. And that's what you say, that can't be, because that's not what nonconformities are all about. You're trying to make sure that the property is not used inconsistently with your regulations. What we're talking about is the space we're going to use. It's going to be farm related. We're going to have more than 50% of stuff that's produced on our farm, and we're not changing we're not going to reduce the ratio. Whatever nonconformity exists in Lakeside, by definition, doing this is not going to make that nonconformity any worse.
I think you're trying to say we should look at this as a separate entity as opposed to the whole property which is already there.
That's exactly what I'm saying.
And I don't know if that's what this says. That's the only problem.
I don't know if that's what you mean. Is that the town's position on, are there any other farms in town that have a store like this that would come to us and say have the same sort of issue? And has there anything else? Do you know? Does anyone know?
I mean, if it's a brand new piece of property with nothing on it, then they would...
There could be a lot of them.
Yeah.
Actually, there could be a lot.
Yeah.
But there's a grandfathered use here, which we can't do anything about.
No.
The question is, by adding this, are we...
Opening that can of worms again.
Because if you look at the whole property, then it doesn't meet this. If you just treat this new one farm stand by itself and forget about the other piece, it's okay.
And then are we disadvantaging farmers that don't have feed stores on it?
Well, no, because as long as their whole property is 50/20, they're fine.
Right, so we're not disadvantaged.
This guy's actually would be ahead of the game because he's got more stuff that doesn't meet this.
I would say disadvantage other farmers.
Well, they could come in and ask for permission to sell farm-related goods that aren't grown on the farm, and we could grant that to them, just like these people did.
Or they could get a variance.
Yeah, I understand.
Yeah.
They went through all the work to get the variance.
So,
This is mostly seasonal goods that you have here.
Yeah, with the exception of the maple syrup, the eggs, and the meat that would be sold in there, the rest of it would be seasonal.
Do you know if the maple syrup is currently running? Surging?
They said they had a very good year.
Yeah, because it's cold and...
Yeah, I wasn't sure, because it started very late because of the weird winter we had, but...
It's amazingly good. Yeah? Yeah.
So when does it do its facility when the season's on? Go through the...
It doesn't get used.
Do you sell Christmas trees at Christmas time?
Does he live in...
I don't think they sell it. You folks don't sell Christmas trees, right? You don't sell Christmas trees on the...
Well, I'm saying that what you're proposing here is that we give permission for 50% of what's on, comes from the farm. I'm worried about the other 50%. What do you do with that building when you're not selling produce?
Oh, it would have to be a permitted use, and we're no longer going to use it as an accessory dwelling, so that's gone. We'll be using this for that seasonal. If, let's say, your Christmas tree example, if the only thing we're selling is Christmas trees, that would be impermissible, because we wouldn't be complying with the 50% rule. And the zoning enforcement officer comes down and issues cease and desist, said this isn't compliant with your regulation that says you have to do it. So that's why they wait until the season opens up.
When you're out of season for farm produce, what are you going to do with the product?
Well, the lakeside feed is still there, but the accessory, just like, there's a lot of big farms that have adjoining their farm, the berry farm is one of Glastonbury I can think of. And it's a big farm, and they have at the end of it, they have a place you can go in, they have a register, and you can buy the products. When the season's over, that gets closed up. I mean, there's still whatever they got to do on the farm, but the actual store piece is going to be
The other
open.
question I have is on the ice cream or soft ice cream, whatever I call ice cream. All the same. Are you going to have a playground or something like that, like the children?
No, I mean, right now, they have chick days, for example, and people come and buy chicks, which just happened a week before the season, and they have the checks, and people come and look at that. But no, they're not building any playgrounds. They expect they'll have, like a picnic table
It's going to
outside.
follow when we're out of season with all your homegrown stuff.
Right. So people will come in and be able to buy produce if they want.
Yeah, but you have other things, but not in this building.
Reggie, so this is your decision, and you just want us to sort of talk to you about it?
I need guidance from you in interpreting the regulation, because the zoning code says you are the ultimate interpreters of your regulations.
So,
And you know, he's right. All these non-farm items that are sold now at Lakeside Feed do not comply. But if you have a non-conformity, should we allow it to be expanded?
So you're saying...
If you have a non-conforming lot, a non-conforming building, non-conforming anything, and you change the regulations and that made it non-conforming, it still, if you're going to add anything else, it has to comply with current regulations. And so I'm asking you for your interpretation of this regulation.
Is it your interpretation that they are, by doing this, they are expanding a non-conforming use? Is that what you sort of...
Well, that's how it looks to me. But that's why I'm asking the
Here's the
commission.
part, I sort of, okay, let's say you have a building on a lot and it exceeds lot coverage. That's
Right.
non-conforming, it's grandfathered in, we can't take
It
it
could
down.
stay that way.
It's like making the argument, well, I want to put this other building on the lot to increase the lot coverage, but if this other building wasn't here, I'd be okay
Yeah, but
putting
no,
this
you
one on there.
still
So
have to
therefore,
comply with lot
well, that's what I
coverage.
mean, but you're trying to say by just putting this little building on here, that would in and of itself, by itself, would be a conforming use. So let's just forget about this other big building here that is already non-conforming. This even puts me over more. It's something like that, you know?
Yeah, and then you have to go to the zoning board of appeals.
I mean, I hate to
And I don't know what to
this,
do with
but I don't know the answer.
Absolutely, absolutely. Both of those examples actually make my argument, okay? Because with the nonconformity, all right, and somebody wants to put another building on, you're making coverage worse. Your regulations say you can only have 60%, 20%, whatever, you didn't make the number, and you got a building that already exceeds it, if you put another building, you make it worse. By definition, you're increasing a nonconformity. It's not allowed. Another example, you have a gas station in a residential zone, all right? That you can intensify it. That's a rule. You know, put up another pump, maybe you can start selling different products. But you can't take a 10,000 square foot gas station and turn it into a 20,000 square foot gas station because the use isn't permitted in the zone. Not allowed, okay? What we have here is a farm stand that was approved that didn't have to comply with the 50% rule, all right? And what we're proposing to do is put a use that's allowed, not talking about expanding the gas station. And the only way you're going to say that that's not allowed, if we're going to take other produce, stuff that's not sold in there, is you're going to hold the fact that you permitted us to sell more than 50% in that building against us when this one complies, not in every respect. The use is allowed in there. And again, if we change the ratios, if what we were doing is moving the non-farm related products into this building, or playing games so that we were taking things that were farm related, that were in the building, moving them into this thing so that we could sell different kinds of dog food, that would be a problem. But that's not what we're doing. They're just going to do nothing different in there, other than, again, if it's a problem, the pumpkins were stacked up in front. So we can keep the pumpkins stacked up in front of there instead of bringing them into this new space. But everything in this new space, how can it possibly be increasing the
let me just try to do it this way. Let's say that right now, you're out of the stand. Are you below 50% and are you above 20%?
Without
just looked at the feed.
No. No, we're not compliant. That's what I mean.
So tell me how much more you're going to raise it closer to 50% and how much more you're going to lower it towards 20% than you are today when you put the stand in.
I can't tell you because we're not required when we're selling all the product to keep a ledger within Lakeside Feed because it's non-conforming with that respect. It's not.
But the argument you're making is by putting this in, I'm going to get the ratio better than it is today. So you just give me some evidence that you're doing that, and I'll be happy.
By definition, if I sell 20 farm-grown products that aren't sold inside Lakeside Feed,
yes.
20 new products,
yes,
and one ice cream, okay, 20 to 1. All right. No matter what's happening inside the farm stand, it's got to be better. If I'm not complying inside, and I'll say that I'm not complying inside, that ratio has got to be better than it was in there. So as long as we meet the 50% rule, if the Lakeside Feed doesn't, we've made it better.
Yeah, I see your point, and that's what I'm just trying to get to is if these ratios are out of whack today, by just having the feed location and by adding this, you're getting me closer to those numbers than you are today. I think you're right, you're reducing the non-conformity.
And that's that's what we're going to be doing because it's going to be all this other produce that isn't sold right now in Lakeside Feed, and it is mostly sold in the stuff that's already sold on the property, but just in the temporary things that are next to the driveway. That all goes in. I can't see how that could be an increase in any kind of non-conformity, and that's going to be a matter of enforcement. If they did play games and suddenly they start selling dog food in there or whatever, then that's a matter of enforcement.
It's a tough one anyways, because what do? You go in there and, like you said, do a ledger and see how many of these.
So Ray, would it be our sort of position, is what you're sort of saying, is that because they're going to be increasing the amount of items sold from the farm with this farm stand, it's better to sort of allow them to.
I'd say if they're under 50% today of what's produced there and they're getting closer to 50%, and or if they're over 20% of the stuff that's sold there is not farm related, and this gets us back down closer to 20, it's probably a good thing.
And that's what you're representing.
And that's what you're representing.
Exactly. And there was a list, by the way, that I can represent to you. There was a list of the products that were sold when the special permit was had. And the stuff that I'm showing you today, those are things that are with the exception of what I've outlined, these are all new products so that it would do exactly what you said.
So we're actually doing a good thing.
I think we're doing a good thing.
Just with your patience for 1 second, and you may want to weigh in this as well. I just want a very brief general support for our authority to regulate the percentage of different types of products sold under circumstances like this, and why it's all right for us to draft that into our code. If that's possible.
Yeah, the question is the regulation legal? I see no reason why it's not. Is it enforceable is another question. And what it means is another question. But
I didn't
don't
mean
think
to
it's
ask the
illegal on its
enforceability.
face.
And it's legal because the state,
I think it's a regulation of a use that's authorized under your right to regulate uses under 8.2 of the General Enabling Act. Again, it may be difficult in determining what the meaning is and there may be enforcement issues, but I don't see that on its face that the regulation exceeds your authority to enact under the Enabling Act.
thank you, that's all I was looking for.
And I, Frank, I don't disagree either.
Okay, that's clear. So, Ray, since you have the greatest understanding, why don't you...
Well, I guess what the finding will make a motion that this commission finds that, as discussed here and is represented by council, and with material that's going to be provided into the record, that it is getting us closer to the ratios than the
It'll be a very slight move.
Right, but as long as it's moving in the right direction, that is, given that it's sort of a non-conforming, I don't know if it's technically a non-conforming use, but it certainly wouldn't be permitted today. It is grandfathered, so there's nothing you can do about it, but to the extent this gets the property more into compliance, I'm okay with it. So I'd say that we would find that the use as proposed here makes it a more conforming use, for lack of a better word, and we would instruct Reggie that this is a permitted use accessory to the farm stand, and that in terms of interpreting the 50% provision of the regulation, that the sales from the existing feed store count in the calculation, but when looked at in the context of the new product being added, it does bring it into more conformity.
I'll second that. That was
Is that clear as mud? Sorry for the secretary trying to write all this down.
One little bit of, just, and all that's true, but there are other things going on that I'm worried about.
Sure.
So are we going
Let's
to
talk
have
about
like increased signage that says, get your ice cream here, or?
Well, that's a different issue, right, Reg? If they do that, and he may need to come back here with a site plan or an application of some sort of...
I want to know what I'm saying yes to now.
No, this isn't changing any signage, right?
No, but they've come in for the permit. The kind of signage they want was going to be in keeping with Guilford agriculture, and this is in the package.
And if it's permitted as of right, you allow it. If it isn't, and they need approval for it, you'd have to come back to whatever commission has jurisdiction on it.
Correct.
Okay.
And I think I can put this on the record, that if these folks put, lakeside ice cream store, on the marquee, and we came in here and said we're going to sell produce, but all we were doing is advertising all around town and being an ice cream parlor, I think that might be problematic, which is not what they plan to do. They plan to augment everything with the sale of ice cream, and I think they...
So we wouldn't expect to see like children's ice cream parties, or would we? They have llamas now, so...
Well, maybe there would be, and they're going to come to pet the llamas.
Well, there could be, but that's as of right.
Yeah.
I mean, there's nothing that says they can't do that.
No.
And there's nothing that says they have to come here or anywhere else.
Farm day for 5-year-olds.
Yeah, to get permission. So
They essentially
what it
do
is.
already have farm day for 5-year-olds.
We don't regulate
Except my daughter's
that.
3.5, and she
As part of this package, we'll make it available to her.
All right,
Okay.
so I understand from the commission that because this is moving toward making the non-conforming amount of non-farm products being sold, this is increasing the number of farm products being sold, then you're advising me that
voted yet.
I may sign the building.
Yes, assuming it's voted on by everybody here and approved, I think you're right.
Okay, well, we have a motion and we have a second. And we all understand what we're talking about, right? For the most part.
For the most part.
The only thing I'd like to add is that the volume of products is such a marginal effect compared to the feed on this site in one direction or the other, that it's compared to the operation that exists now, this is, I think you're right, technically, it has a positive effect on the percentage, but it has a negligible effect on almost everything compared to what
Right,
the site
but-
already
but-
does on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, but the thing you got to keep in mind is they're grandfathered with that use. That's that big piece. So there's not much we can really do about that. I mean, to the extent it gets it, even by 0.1%, it's an improvement.
So even if we were to find that this were an increase in the nonconformity, it would be a technical, negligible increase, just like we are, if we pass this motion, we are finding that it's a technical, negligible decrease in the nonconformity.
I mean, as long as it's not an increase.
Right.
Even if it's 0.0001 increase, that's a problem.
Which is what I think it is.
Right. Well, if it is, we shouldn't vote for it then. I mean, the representations we're getting here are that by adding these products in, it's going to get us closer to those numbers.
But it's going to, they sell so much feed.
Right,
It's
I
gonna
know.
sell little ice cream.
And let's not mix our percentage with volume.
Correct.
We're thinking about volume.
Well, I'm
It's
actually also
percentages.
thinking about financial percentage, because the feed is expensive.
Yeah, but this doesn't say anything about financial. It doesn't say that.
So which
It just says, stuff.
number of products?
Number of products.
So, but each different type of feed.
You're right.
I don't know.
And it could be even different size bags.
Well, it depends on how you, I mean, or is feed one product, you know? I mean, I don't know.
Okay. Are we where we need to be? You ready?
I think it's all been said.
All those in favor? Congratulations.
Thank you.
Any opposed, abstaining? Yeah, we're good. Thank you. Thank you for explaining it so well.
Not sure about that, but thank you.
Okay. What do we got here with
We can ask the audience to.
No, we don't think we need to go into executive session.
Okay.
Should we continue Russo's?
Is Russo here?
Russo?
Nope. Why don't you vote to continue that hearing to the 15th?
Okay. Can I have a motion to continue Russo to the 15th?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Good luck.
So what do we know
Okay,
here?
I think this is not as complicated as the last one, I hope. This is actually an ongoing lawsuit right now. You recall that a year or so ago, you approved a special permit to allow additional horses at 94 Cooks Lane. The ag regulations have a provision to allow more horses than you're allowed by right if you get a special permit. Donna Latello did receive a special permit to allow more horses. That special permit was appealed by the adjoining property owner, which is currently, that appeal is currently pending in the Superior Court. Mr. and Mrs. Latella spoke to me and have spoken to Reggie over the last several years or several weeks about this particular issue. The bottom line question that Mr. Latella addressed to me the other day was their legal fees are beyond what their expectation was. They don't want to incur any more legal expenses related to defending the lawsuit. And as you know, in a situation like this, we look to the permit recipient to carry the burden of the legal costs when there's a lawsuit related to a planning and zoning decision. We look to them to carry the burden of the legal costs, to do most of the work related to it, although Chuck is engaged on our behalf in this lawsuit as well. He's expecting counsel for the Latellas to do most of the work. Mr. Latella told me that he doesn't want to spend any more money. He doesn't want to engage his attorney any further, and he asked me if I thought the town and the Planning and Zoning Commission would therefore carry the burden of the lawsuit through the next steps and pay the expenses that related thereto. I told him, after talking with Chuck and also our in-house counsel, that this is not something that we do. The town really has nothing at stake with regard to this application that's in the interest of the town, or we want to pay these expenses. The benefit of the special permit
If there is one, accrues to the property owner. The Planning and Zoning Commission doesn't really care whether they have another horse or not, and therefore we're not going to, it wouldn't be our recommendation, town council and I, to you to authorize our council to defend this lawsuit without their participation. I think basically what we want to establish tonight is that you agree with that.
It says on here we should go possible executive session. Is that, do you think you need it?
I don't think you need to do that. The Latellas are fully aware of this. I've spoken to them about it today. I told Mr. Latella today that this is what I would recommend to the commission. It's somewhat unusual. It's the first time I've ever run across this situation where the permit recipient has said they don't want to go on with this any further. Evidently, they did negotiate, and Chuck can perhaps provide more detail on this, they did negotiate the two parties and were reaching an agreement, or I guess we thought that they were going to reach an agreement to settle the whole thing before it went full-fledged into through the Superior Court, but evidently that those agreements weren't forthcoming, or they didn't finalize it, so it's a little bit of a limbo status right now, I think, but maybe Chuck can expand on that further.
I have had discussions with the attorney who brought the lawsuit on behalf of the neighbors, as well as the attorney for the Latellas, the successful applicant, but apparently they've been letting go. I'd be happy to talk to you about this. I don't know whether you want to go into executive session or not. I can just talk to you about it without it. It's up to you guys.
I mean, I just have really one question. If this doesn't go through judgment, then there's no precedential. If we drop this, that doesn't mean it's going to affect the validity of that regulation in any way, right? That we granted this special permit.
I don't believe, the claims are not that the regulation is illegal, but that the commission erred in approving the permit because you acted arbitrarily.
Okay. That would be personally my main concern, is that it's clouded now, this regulation.
The parties had discussed, the attorneys had discussed some possible settlements. Frankly, I think this should be settled. And I think that authorizing me to do it on my own would not help encourage a settlement.
It's not the business of the town, actually.
Correct, to look to the town to fund the expense, the legal expenses that primarily benefits a particular property.
Right, I mean, we don't have a vested interest here, and because they're not attacking the validity of the regulation.
It's not a town-wide sponsored regulation that you guys sponsored that could have implications beyond this property.
So,
Chuck, are you interested in telling us about prospective settlements that we might be involved in some way in executive session?
I'm happy to talk to, there were a couple things that are mentioned, and I'd be happy to talk to in executive session, or if you don't want to, I could just talk to them without that. It's your call.
but there's nothing that's confidential or anything that you'd be breaching by talking about it in public, right? There's no agreement you have with council or...
No, I'm happy to relate what I...
Yes, so
just put it on the record so everybody can hear.
The appeal was taken by John Lambert. John Lambert's an attorney from in North Haven. He appeared in opposition. He mentioned to me when he was about to file the appeal that if we had that George had mentioned a possible condition about limitation about the duration of the permit, and that if that condition had been added to the permit, that they likely would not have brought the appeal. So that to me says, okay, add a condition to that, the appeal goes away. I did have, the Latellas hired Chris Smith, who's a good attorney. He's, Hartford attorney and whatever, but he's a good land use attorney. I had some discussions with him, and also he mentioned that they were talking with each other. I had some discussions with John Lambert that they thought they were going to work it out. And in my mind, that even if there isn't an attorney, even if the Latellas decide to dismiss, they're concerned about legal costs, they can still talk to John Lambert on their own and try to work it out. And whatever they work out, I would bring it to you. If you bless it, it goes away.
I did encourage, in my conversation with Mr. Latella yesterday and today, I did exactly that. I encouraged him to go directly to his neighbor and try to come up with some kind of an agreement. If he didn't want to engage his counsel in those discussions, more power to him. And I urged him to do that, and I don't know whether that'll be fruitful or not, but it's possible.
Either way, we should not spend town money on this. This is not.
It seems counter to everything that we've done in the past, so.
Well, just go back a second, though. The fact that the suit is against the Latellas and the town, right?
Correct.
So,
Against the Planning and Zoning Commission.
what if the party did not, in some way wanted to, even though the Latellas have said, okay, we just can't go any further on this, is there any likelihood that they would continue to pursue the town because we erred for some kind of damages, because we erred in making the decision we made?
Yes, the way this works is they filed an appeal. The next step would be we would have to prepare a record, we'd have to get a transcript of the public hearing and the deliberations, so we have to pay somebody to do that and file that paperwork in court. The step after that is the plaintiff then would have to file a brief that articulated why they thought the commission erred in making the approval. Then it would be our turn and the Latellas' turn to file their brief, and that's whether you do that or not is sort of what we're talking about. But ideally, we don't want to incur the costs of getting the transcript. That's why, frankly, we have some lawsuits on hold because we hope they go away. And then you don't want, as much as I love for you to pay me and whatever,
Let me just make sure I understand.
that they won't continue the action
I
against
think
the town.
Tom's question, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, so correct me if I'm wrong, but if we drop this and then they drop it and say, the town should have pursued it, can they come against the town? Is that your question, Tom?
Yeah.
Well, both
I don't
parties will have
believe
something.
so, right? I mean, this is the time to bring the...
Right, they've already gone against the town. I mean, the neighbors have filed this appeal against the town.
Well, I think he means the Latellas.
Oh, can the Latellas
come against us
the
for not
town?
participating.
Anyone can file anything.
Yeah.
Make a claim, but they certainly have the opportunity to defend their rights, and if they choose not to, that's their own doing.
So are we asking, George, you asking for a decision here, or because it just says discussion? It doesn't...
I don't know.
Looking for
Never really had this question come up before. I don't know whether you need to decide that you don't want to have, or we just sort of let sleeping dogs lie.
I mean,
I don't recommend you make any more motions or anything at this point.
I mean, the ball's in the Latellas' court. If they want to dismiss it, they dismiss it. If they want to go on, they go on. And if it gets settled, they can settle. Right?
And I'm not even sure we would be the proper body anyway, because we're not the one that's, there are other boards and officials in this town that have a more vested interest in how much this is going to cost.
Sure.
No, we're the defendant, one of the defendants, I guess. But so I guess thanks for the update.
Yeah, that's
and
You're welcome.
we'll go from there.
Chuck, we need some education. You need to give it to us.
Okay. Are we on the election of officers, or?
Yes.
I was having a nice time in my office this afternoon working on something unrelated to this. I got a call from Pam. And as I understand, the issue is, this is your annual election of officers of the commission, and the question is that vote to be done by the regular members only, there's 7 regular members, or do we include the regulars and the alters, which are 10 members? And I was asked to look at that, and I reviewed, I spoke with Pam, she had some ideas, tried to speak with other council that may have looked at this, and we respect. And I'll give you the bottom line of where I'm coming out, and I'm going to go through and tell you how I got there. The bottom line is, frankly, that in some areas the laws is not clear. is not, and I can't give you a 100% answer that I think it's definitely one way or the other. However, I do think that the likelihood, that the probably better argument is that only the regular members rather than should vote. And what I'll do is I'll just go through and run through my, how I get there, but with the understanding that, again, I don't think this is a clear issue. It could be clearer, and I'll tell you how it could be clear. The legislature could have made it clear if they had done for Planning and Zoning Commission what they did for the Zoning Board of Appeals, where they say it right in the statute, it's not anywhere else. So here, let's start with your bylaws, because that's where you start. And what I've done is, these are just pieces of paper to go through what I'm talking about. You start with the bylaws, and that's on section 3 that says, a candidate receiving a majority vote from the membership of the commission present shall be declared elected and shall serve for 1 year, etc. So it says from the membership of the commission. Well, what does that mean? Turn to the next page. You look earlier, and there's a provision, membership of the commission, and it says the commission shall consist of 7 members and 3 alternates who will be appointed. So that's not wholly clear, but you can, just looking at this language, you could say, well, membership, it's referring to the 10 members, the regulars and the alternates, when it uses the term members. So that under that reading, you could say the membership of the commission includes the regular members and the alternates, so therefore all 10 should be involved in that vote. Now that itself isn't crystal clear because the commission is only 7 members. So you could say membership, it only includes alternates that are seated in the event that the regular members aren't there. It's not totally clear, but you can read it as including the regulars and the alternates. And my understanding is, George, is that that's been done in the past, and so that alternates have been involved in that. So that's the bylaws. So, but you know, that's an interpretation question. I think it's your right to interpret whatever. That's just one reading, just a strict reading. Membership, how does it define membership? Includes both. Okay, so maybe it should include both. That's good. The next question is, okay, that's what your bylaws say. Is there anything in the charter or the statutes that overrule that? Because those are just bylaws, zoning regulations. There may be some higher type of authority that says, well, you got to look at that too. So what I did is I looked at that, is there something else that overrides that? And so I kind of just went through it. What does the charter say? That's the next page. And that's in section 4.4 and 4.5. It just talks about appointed commissions. They shall choose a chairperson and secretary and shall make regulations for the conduct of their meeting and execution of duties. Okay, well, that doesn't tell you anything. It just says they shall. Well, who's they? I don't know. What about 4.5? It says, okay, this is something. Planning and Zoning Commission shall consist of 7 members with the powers and duties, and then down it says there shall be 3 alternate members. And I think what you guys know is that you start off every meeting, it's, you know, who's going to be seated, because you want to get 7 people seated. You know that you don't have 10 people vote on a regular application, because that would be a problem. The charter says you're a 7-member commission, and you can't violate a charter and make it 10. And I think it's always been crystal clear to me that for applications, when you're amending the regulations, you only get 7. But the question that was up in the air for me is, well, what about, you're not voting, you're not deciding anyone's property rights. You are deciding the application, you're just deciding internally who's going to do this. So that, but you could read this as saying, no, that's a 7-member commission, so the term commission automatically is 7 and so forth. So, but I don't think that's a whole lot, that's very clear. That's just some language in the charter that to me doesn't answer the question one way. Okay, so now next page is 8.1b, alternate members of the Zoning Commission and Compliant with Planning and Zoning Commission. Again, that's a statutory, what are alternates? Alternates, when seated as provided herein, shall have the powers and duties. So And that's kind of reinforcing that alternates only have power when they're seated. So that's why when you start, the alternates can seat. If someone's absent or disqualification, you seat the alternates. And then it says the ordinance shall provide for the manner of designating alternates to act, which the ordinance doesn't. I mean, it just says we'll follow the statute, so they kind of refer back to each other. So, I mean, what this says is that, again, it kind of, in some ways, it reinforces the concept that only alternates really have no power except when they're seated. In which case, if you take that logic again, only the 7 regular members. But again, we're not deciding anyone's property rights, we're just looking at what he said. Okay, go to the next page. And now we're still looking at statute. This is 8.4a, and it's talking about a combined planning and zoning commission. In the establishment of a planning and zoning commission with 6 or more members, the provisions of section 819 shall apply. Okay. So we could turn it in one more page and we look at 819, and finally they have a statute that says something. It says the commission shall elect a chairman and secretary from its members, shall adopt rules and so forth. So now we have the statute that's talking about the commission. And what does the commission mean? I think if you look at the statutes, not at your bylaws, but you look at the way statutes are defined, I think Planning and Zoning Commission is the 7 people that are seated. That it is the 7, which would be whoever the 7 seated members. It could be alternates if someone's absent or disqualified, but that's typically what it is. So that's why, if you look at what do the statutes say, the statutes say the commission shall elect a chairman and a secretary. So and the commission is defined to be the number, and it can't include the alternates unless they're seated. So that is an argument as to why the statutes can...
I don't think it says that. It says that you have to choose a chairman and a secretary from its members. In other words, they need to be regular members. They can't be alternates. I don't think it's saying that the alternates can't choose in that sense.
I read the word commission. What does that refer to?
The commission shall elect a chairman and a secretary.
Right, and what does, when I was looking at that language, I was reading, what does the word commission refer to? Does it refer to the 10 members or the 7? Well, that's what I was getting. That's all the other statutory stuff where it seems to be where
The bylaws describe the commission sort of
as including that, right.
So in this instance, the commission might apply to just the members, but in the bylaws, not just the seated members, but in the bylaws, for instance, it may apply to all 10 members.
The bylaws a strict reading of the bylaws says all 10 members should be involved in that. I think that's a fair reading. But and the question is, well, what is that? Is your authority derives from the statute. You have no authority but for what the legislature gave you. So that means you have to comply with whatever the statutes say in terms of your operations. A fair way of reading the statutes is that the word commission refers to only the 7 members as to what has been created that you to have, that the alternates have no power except when they're seated. So that under that reading, then under 819, you would say only the regular members should participate in that under that section. Now, I don't think that is crystal clear by any sense. And the last page I had from section 8.5, which says, it's talking about the zoning board of appeals. And it says the board, by vote of its regular members only, shall elect a chairman from its members. I wish they had been so clear with the Planning and Zoning Commission, because then I wouldn't have to do this stuff.
There's no case law on that either.
No, there's no case law. This stuff doesn't get litigated. You know, these people, you know, it just doesn't. So I think that, you know, I could probably defend either one, but I'm giving you what I've got the odds are one view over the other, and I think that looking at the statutes, you derive your authority from the statutes. When they talk about that, and there is case law, by the way, on some of the ZBA case law that confirms that alternates should not participate in deliberations or votes. It's only the 7 people for planning and zoning commission. So in the public hearing, you can, but after the public hearing's closed, you can't participate.
That's true for the commission, too.
Yeah, that's true.
Is our,
Yeah, that's true.
is our, let me just ask this question. Is our own bylaws in error in the fact that we have a chairman, a vice chairman, and a secretary? Because that's, all our commissions are that way. And it doesn't say anything in here about having vice chairman, and yet we do.
Right. I don't see that as having a vice chair is anyway inconsistent with the statute. I don't think that's a problem. It doesn't say there shall be no vice chairman. I think that would be overreading that. I'm just, the problem I had is that what do the statutes mean when it says the word commission? What is it referring to? I mean, in just looking at how the word commission is defined and what it refers to, I think it refers to probably just the 7. But it's not clear, and like I say, it could be a lot clearer, and they knew how to make it clearer for ZBAs. And you can go with the so I just, unfortunately, law is that way sometimes, that it isn't. I like to be able, because I know it's a touchy area, guys.
I mean, what they say is, I mean, you're right, there shall be a planning and zoning commission of 7 members. Then they go on to say there shall be 3 alternate members of the planning and zoning commission.
Right.
So you can read that to be 10.
Yeah, you can. You can. I agree with it, you can read the word commission as including regular and alternates. It just seems that you do have the statute that says alternates when seated should have the sole power, which in my mind suggests that you're only talking about 7, whatever. So whether they're regulars or alternates, you can only have 7.
But that doesn't differentiate between making decisions about the regulations and making decisions about how this body is run. It doesn't make any distinction there.
No, it doesn't. The only thing that says about how this body is run is in 819, where it says the commission shall elect. And what does the word the commission mean? That's where I'm going by. That sentence, but for 819, this one sentence, I would be, I'd say maybe go with violence, or I'd be whatever. But that one sentence, and what does the word the commission mean in 819, and based on how the other things are, that's how we do it. But again, this is not clear. This is not understand. You have some precedent. You've done it differently in the past, and maybe I'm just telling you, this is, ask me.
You're giving
that's what
the best.
I'm giving you my best opinion as to, right.
Are you interested in the history of what we've done and how we've handled this issue?
That's probably been inconsistent, too.
It has been. So, I can tell you that I went back to 2006, as a matter of fact. Of course, in the vast majority of cases, the minutes reflected the fact that the commission voted unanimously to elect the following officers. And when it says unanimously, it doesn't enumerate each individual vote, so we don't actually know who voted and who didn't vote. In a couple of cases where there was a contested election, in 2006, there was a contested election. 7 regular members were at the meeting and 2 alternates were at the meeting. The officers were elected on a 4-3 vote among the regular members, and 2 alternates did not vote. Now, there was no discussion about whether they were allowed to vote or not, but they did not vote in 2006. In every other circumstance, except for in 2014, when there was also a contested vote, the vote was unanimous. In most cases, alternates and regular members were there, and in several cases, the minutes used the phrase, quote unquote, all commissioners vote, which I read that to mean, everybody who was at the meeting was voting. But again, the individual votes were not enumerated in the text of the meeting minutes. In the 4-3 vote in 2014, there were no alternates present at that meeting, so that didn't shed any light on this subject.
So George, we also
So I think clearly we have voted with everybody, including alternates or officers in some cases, and in other cases, or at least one, We voted only with the regular members, the 7, even though there were alternates present at that meeting.
Right, and in the recollections of some of the long-term members is that alternates were voting.
I think that was the general rule.
Is there
Although
any
it wasn't
instance
always
where-
that way.
Is there any instance where the alternates were enumerated as having voted in the annual meeting? That they were actually specifically listed by
Not
name?
that not between 2006 and now.
George, in our regular meeting, when we have unanimous votes, how do we word unanimous votes? Does it say all the commissioners?
Yeah, regular business.
Yeah, regular business. Does it say all the commissioners? So,
I don't know. I don't think we list the individual. That's a good question. I don't know the answer
they're
to
just
that.
seated, and, I think that the secretary is probably just all the commissioners vote unanimously for everything. And we could have 9 members present, and it's still going to say all the commissioners, but only 7 people voted. I think it's hard for you to say, with certainty, unless you do remember that alternates voted. I'm not saying that that's not something we should do tonight. I'm just saying that I don't think that it'd be a fair.
I think by statute we have voted. My recollection is that we have elected officers with everybody voting, including the alternates, but nobody, that's not real definitive in my mind. And, most cases, nobody really cared whether they voted or not, since it was a unanimous vote.
By statute, if it's a application, special permit, site plan, blah, 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 it can only be the 7 seated members.
Oh, no question.
What the problem is we've had other situations, like, on the minutes, or on the bills, where everybody participates and votes, and it's on internal matters like that. So I don't know how much clarity that gives you.
So what do we do now?
We'll make a decision.
Who makes the decision? All 10 of us, or?
I don't know.
Well, so supposing
Well, we can just go by past practice and continue along those lines if you want.
So suppose
Which appears to be, from what we can tell, everybody votes.
right. So
I don't know. I honestly
Except
don't
when
know.
Shirley was elected 4-3 in
That's the
2006, and that is the only time where the voting members were actually listed.
and we don't know why.
No, they were listed in 2014, but there were no alternates.
There were no alternates.
And like we said, that our regular meetings, when we have decisions, and say it's unanimous, it's not enumerated that, George and Phil did not vote. It just says a unanimous commission.
Right.
I'm not sure of that. I'll assume that.
A lot of times we do list the names though, who voted for and against.
If there was definitely four,
Yeah,
if
we
it was
were
unanimous, then we might not. I don't even know the answer to
But,
that.
it's assumed that only be the 7 seated commissioners there because by statute, you
No question, whether it's in regular business, it's only 7 people.
Right.
you don't have to qualify anymore if it's unanimous.
That's
Right, but our minutes won't reflect what we did on other things.
Yeah, sure.
Is there an example where 7 members were seated and additional alternates were present, where their names were also listed on any vote by this commission? Because I am not aware of any instance where alternates were listed as having voted on anything without having been seated.
No, they wouldn't be.
Right, except
for
earlier executive session,
Except for internal business. You're never going to
Even
get
on internal business, like you were mentioning the bills or the minutes, I'm not aware of a situation where an alternate
I
was
just
listed.
remember from being here, maybe other people
I don't-
have elections where everybody's voted.
I don't remember, I won't even.
And the bylaws, if you don't look at the statutes, lead you to believe that
This needs to be, the problem is this needs to be settled before we're in a situation where we're up against a real vote.
Well, the problem is, it is what it is.
I think it's always machine to decide,
So why don't we just take a vote? And do we have, and to your humorous comment, do we have the regular members vote or do we have all members vote?
It's funny, it's not a joke.
I know. So I would say that it would seem fair to hold a vote to determine whether all members should vote in this election and it should be voted on by all members. Is that in keeping with what you would think would be fair?
boss of us, and
but
I
they're
don't
not
think that
concise.
no, nor are they clear.
Right, so in the absence of clear and concise instructions, it's reasonable for us to do what we've done in the past. And in this case, we're acknowledging that they're not clear and they're not concise by asking ourselves on the record what we should do. And it's the only fair way to do it in my book.
Yeah, I think it is appropriate for the commission to decide, who should vote. So there should be a vote as to whether the election of officers should be by the 7 regulars and include the alternates or not. So, and that's, and you've heard my opinion, which is that it's not fully clear, but I think that's the better, just the regular terms of my statute. Which is what, but you've heard all my caveats. And the question is whether that vote should include the alternates. Maybe you can just take the vote and write down who voted for and against and see if it makes a difference. I don't know.
Okay.
Well, there's one thing we can check. When did you see Anna Dwyer?
Anna Dwyer.
Anna Dwyer? When did you see Anna Dwyer for your swearing in?
Hey, I can't hear.
Oh, when did you see Anna Dwyer for your swearing in?
About 3 weeks ago.
So then we're all appropriate, so we can all just vote.
We can all vote on whether we can vote.
Yeah, I guess.
All right, so look.
Well, one of the things I would suggest is between now and next year, maybe we appoint a subcommittee to go through these things and clean up, because we can only modify these at the annual meeting. There's other, I don't want to say discrepancies, but there's other ambiguities in here that maybe can also be cleaned up so we don't have this problem.
That's probably a good
Next,
idea.
whenever it is.
Yep. All right. So, go ahead, Tom.
Can I just make a comment? I've been an alternate on the Wetlands Commission and an alternate on the Planning and Zoning Commission. And as an alternate, it's very hard to be here at every meeting and feel like you're being included. And from my perspective, everyone that's on this commission has a value. And we're asking alternates to choose the slate that we're going to vote on. And I think, in fairness to the alternates, I think we owe it to them to let them vote on who's going to be the leadership of the commission.
Well, on the Inland Wetlands Commission, the alternates are the group that presents the slate, and then they do not vote because they are not members.
Well, I think when I was on, they did vote. That goes back a long time.
So,
but I'm just talking about last year.
So why don't we just decide on this tonight? Because we just need to do it. So, what I would like is a show of hands of all of the members of this commission that believe that all of the members should vote. Is that correct?
Members and alternates?
Members and alternates. So are your hands up?
Yeah.
Anyone else?
Rich? I don't think Rich can.
If I can't vote, why are you even showing up?
No, you know.
Everybody can vote.
Everybody can vote.
He wants to vote, so put your hand up if you want.
Okay, so Frank, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 6. So that motion carries because the downs would be 4. So in that measure,
Can we get, let's make sure we have a
Yeah,
vote
let's make
fresh.
sure we have everything.
I'm missing this room.
All right, I voted yes. Frank voted yes. George, I think you were
George
voting
Underhill.
I voted no.
We didn't even take it. They didn't lose no.
Well, okay, well,
We should do a no.
yeah, you should do a no.
okay, so all those saying no. Bill, Josh, Walter, and Richard. All right, so that's 10. So that's all in. So then the motion carries that everybody can vote.
Of the 6, how many, if it had been only 7 regular, would it make a difference? I'm just
Well,
curious.
let's hold it again.
No, well, I don't know, you just count the members.
But we had 1, 2, 3, 4. We had 4.
Okay, so you had the majority either way.
So either way,
Okay.
it would carry.
All right, so for the purposes of this election tonight, and only tonight, and hopefully next year we'll be better prepared, all of the members will be voting. Okay? We all agree? Good.
We all
So,
agree.
Josh, you and
Phil.
Well, I've been working with Frank and Josh. I've come up with 3 slates for the commission to consider and vote on. First would be Richard Myers, chairman, Tom Cost as vice chairman, and Walter Corbier as secretary. Second slate would be Tom Cost as chairman, Richard Myers as vice, and Walter as secretary. And the final one would be Walter Corbier as chairman, Richard as vice, and Josh Hirschman as secretary.
Last chance. Is that it? Okay, so it would be appropriate at this time for me to ask for a vote on this. So on the slate of candidates, that is the first slate, me as chair, Tom, exactly the same as what we have right now. All those, and everyone's voting. And all those in favor of maintaining this slate or voting for this slate, raise your hands. 1, 2, 3. So that doesn't carry.
We have that.
Get the no's as well.
Noes? Okay, so that does not carry. Next up, we have the slate of Tom Cost, me as vice chair, and Walter as secretary. All those in favor? That's 4. All those opposed? That's 4. 5. Okay, so that doesn't carry.
Is there an abstention?
Wait a minute, let's get these.
There's an
Okay.
abstention.
First, we want to know who was in favor again.
Yeah, well,
And you have a new
The
secretary.
second slate.
Second slate.
So this is Tom, Richard,
Tom
and Walt.
Cost, Richard
Tom.
Meyer, and Walter.
And yourself.
And the ayes first.
Were we on the second thing?
Second.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So, all in favor?
So that's,
Which one is this?
Okay, this is the second one?
Yeah, that's,
Yeah.
so it's what?
so this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Right.
And all those opposed?
5, so it's a tie, it doesn't carry.
Okay.
Did you get everyone? Okay, vote 11.
Well, those, it didn't
Okay.
vote yes, vote no.
On the third-
Those are, we need who's opposed to them. Can you raise your hands again? Are you Richard?
This is opposed?
Richard Meyer, Richard Wallace.
This
Who
is-
else? Josh?
Walter. Phil.
Bill.
So that's 5.
Okay.
So those are the 5 now.
Before we move on to slate 3, I was wondering if the commission would be willing to accept, if I were to remove my name and ask that Josh Hirschman be nominated from the floor, would the commission be amenable?
I have no problem with that if somebody wants. So what
That
you're
would
saying with the
clinch it.
third slate?
So I would ask to remove my name at this time and withdraw my name from consideration.
So
And
this one, this
if
one's
it's in
good.
order, Mr. Chairman, I would like to nominate Joshua Hirschman as chair, Tom Cost as vice chair, and Walter Corbier as secretary from the floor.
Okay.
And our alternates and our new members may want to confer for a moment.
Well, there's no need to confer. It's a motion, and I'll second it.
So you're going, you want to go to secretary and put Josh in as chairman?
Correct.
And third?
Correct. The slate that I would like to present from the floor is Hirschman, Cost, Corbier.
Okay. All those in favor of the third slate, Josh, Tom, and Walter?
Keep your arms up.
4.
Walter, Richard Wallace, Josh.
You seconded it, no?
I seconded it.
Okay.
Okay,
got
so-
it, got it.
And then,
And opposed?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to try to make a motion from the floor at this point as well. I'd like to nominate Rich Meyer for chair, Ray Bauer for vice chair, and Richard Wallace for secretary.
I'd like to second. Oh,
Sorry.
let me second that.
Good.
Second.
Okay. I'll call the question.
All right.
Who was that again?
It's
Richard Meyer is chair, Ray Bauer is vice chair, and Reg Wallace
Wallace.
is secretary.
And Richard Wallace.
all ready?
Already.
All those in favor? Ooh, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
We got it.
Are you voting too?
There you go. Right,
There's
get
only
the
7 commission
So,
members.
the nays and abstentions.
All right, anyone voting against? Anyone abstaining?
Doesn't make a difference.
Right.
Okay, so, in light of that, the chairman will be me, the vice chair will be Ray, and Richard Wallace will be secretary. You're going to be reading all the time, kid.
Congratulations.
Congratulations. Good work, gentlemen.
Can we applaud because we got Slate?
Thank you,
We're all happy. Well done, gentlemen.
Now, there is some more business we have to attend to. Who has an agenda?
I have an agenda.
There is a
Chairman, this time I would like to move to pay the bills.
What are those bills?
Let me say. They are $52.
$52 for who?
seconded that.
Shore Publishing. Frank DeAndrea. Michael Francesco DeAndrea.
All those in favor of the $52 in payment? Aye. Any opposed?
Mr. Chairman, at this time I would like to move for approval of the minutes as drafted for 3/18/15 regular meeting.
Has everyone had an opportunity to review those minutes? Are they substantially correct? I reviewed them, they look good to me.
Look good to me.
Call the question.
All those in favor?
What,
Aye.
seconded it. We didn't get a second.
Tom?
I second.
Okay.
So it's
Mr. Chairman, with no further business before the commission at this time, I would like to move for adjournment.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Good night, everybody.